Great.
All right, so welcome everybody to the July MNRCC meeting. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. And we are starting earlier because the board briefing, which is usually at 2 o'clock, they moved it up to 1 o'clock. So I'm glad that you all were available to join us. So I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, the minutes were prepared nicely and sent out. I'll make a motion to that they get approved. We get a second?
Second.
Everybody in favor? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. My chair's report was distributed. So we're seem to be, actually, you know what? I did take a look yesterday in advance of so I want to give the really good news. So I'm going to look at it again. And let's move down here to Metro North. So the last date they have recorded is Tuesday, which was 62%. Monday was 50%. But Sunday was 100% of pre-pandemic ridership.
Wow.
And you think that was great. Saturday was 102%. So we know since things started to come back a little bit to normal, that the weekends all have higher ridership than during the week. So hopefully we can stay. Last week the ridership was all in the 60s. 63, 64, 61 for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Excuse me, Randy. Is there any breakdown of where?
No, this is the MTA website /coronavirus/ridership. That's the only place. I don't go for more details than that. But we had May on this phone. Maybe May can give us some information.
Or Peter?
Or Peter. No. You're allowed to
Yeah,
speak.
I don't have any more insight. Sorry.
I know that Breakneck Ridge has been a popular destination on the weekends. I don't know if that's been a precipitating destination, but whatever it is.
Sorry, I don't have information either, but as always, if you want to just send me a quick email about it, I can look into it and get back to you.
That would be great. That would be
Well,
great.
I have a question. Listening to the numbers regarding ridership, obviously people seem to be riding on the weekends rather than during the week. And my question is, and I know this is probably a town issue rather than a Metro North issue, but they both go together. So as an example, when I was parking at the New Rochelle train station, I had to pay like maybe $1,500 or $1,800 a year to park there to have a permit. My question is, has anybody thought about, because people now only have to go into work maybe 1, 2, or 3 days a week, to offering some kind of package other than a $1,800 a year parking permit?
I think a lot of those, the towns or villages or municipalities own those lots. What do we, a lot of the stuff is LAS parking, which is Metro North contractor. May, do you have any idea about that? So maybe we could ask Metro North to speak to the municipalities. So they know who they are. They know who the people are, and find out if they can, if there's some kind of a better way of having a reduced rate parking for people who don't need to go 5 days a week.
Yeah, because you realize if we're trying to get ridership up and somebody doesn't have to go in 5 days, you know, it's a disincentive.
This may
You're
be
right.
something that we can also raise following the presentation on first mile, last mile. Since that's going to possibly be, that's today, right? That's that.
We will also, maybe you could talk about it at the joint committee.
Yeah.
Let it be out there. The news media might pick it up and they could go after the towns. I know my neighbor was paying like $1,500 a year or something, and he only goes I didn't ask. I think he pays daily parking when he goes there now. When I see him the next time, I'll ask him. But it's a good thought, because I know where I park in Nanuet, I have the town resident. I'm entitled to free parking, and I have a permit. I tag I hang on my winch, my mirror. Richard, you said you typed something in. I didn't see what it is. So why don't you
Oh.
share with us?
What did I write? I wrote like, Tuesdays and Wednesdays tend to be like the crowded days on the train, like from Suffolk. And Tuesday, I would have guessed, it's like at least 50-60% full, which is, in a 5-seat, it's like 3 people across, at least where I was sitting.
What time would you be leaving from Suffolk?
I catch like a 6:59.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the path, when I got into the city, the path was like full, standing, crowded, felt like a New York City subway.
Well, I'll be on the path on Monday. I'll have to take a look. It hasn't been crowded. It really hasn't been that crowded when the times I've ridden it, but it's early. It's like a 7:20 train I catch out of
The middle of the midweek ones are the busy ones. Like nobody wants to go in on Monday or Friday. So
Yes, I heard that.
if you want to avoid the crowds going on Friday. You're saying like Nanuet, it's like there's the county lot, which is also free. People can just park over there.
Correct. Yes, I did see a guy when I was going in on Tuesday morning, my wife, and he was going to park. He had no tag on his car. So I said, you're really not allowed to park here. Oh, he said, I was told that visitors can park for free. I said, I don't know who told you that, but they're not right. So I told him where to go to the free lot.
Mhm.
All right. Since I don't have anything else, let's go to the to old business. Is there? Oh, we had yes, there was something here.
We had written a letter.
I'm
Right,
sorry?
to Kathy Rinaldi.
Yes, that. Yeah.
Right, so we've written a letter to Kathy Rinaldi as an action item about 2 issues. One was the reinstatement of quiet cars, and the other was about reissuing paper timetables. And we haven't gotten a formal written response, but Kathy did speak with me at an event. Can't remember which event, but she spoke with me after an event, and they are going they're going to look at quiet cars again when they have a better handle on the number of people who are returning. After Labor Day is the new after Labor Day, right? That's when they're expecting if people are going to come back, the numbers of people who are going to come back. But the concern is sort of shepherding people into one car and dealing with overcrowding in that car that they don't want. Same with, I also had at this time I spoke to her about a mask only car, for people who really want to have mask, want to be in an enforced mask environment. And the concern was about overcrowding in a specific car, and then how you manage overflow, or if there are other people who want to go in there, or if there's non-compliance in there and enforcement of that. So she had said that that's something that they'll consider and look at after the summer. Similarly, after this summer, when they have a better handle on what the fall and going into the next phases of post-pandemic ridership are, they'll consider putting out a handful of timetables, but that has been eliminated from the budget. So
We're not talking about a lot of money. We really aren't.
well, I think that's something that really could be a board issue, and that's something that's raised at LARCC also. And maybe that's something that you bring up at LR at the joint committee meeting.
Okay.
Because there are a number of people who do like to have them. And I know that next week is the July plan, and we'll be getting some mixed,
Yeah,
not great budget news, but if it's not a lot of money, but there is some demand, then customer service, customer satisfaction, and getting riders back on board is going to be key to making sure that there's sufficient funding going into the future. So that's going to help.
a
And
friend,
maybe it's cost neutral.
a friend of Walter and Mike,
They
a friend
give
of Walter.
anybody, any customers or, you know, passengers or anybody, they just took it out of the budget arbitrarily, and that was it. And I think everybody can go on the computer or go on the phone or something and get the train schedules, and that's not the right approach to this.
Well, I guess the concern that I have is, I don't see how we can at this stage be adding money to a budget, even though it's insignificant. And I would be okay doing that if I felt like we had made an effort to encourage people to see the extent that the current tools offer. And I would strongly encourage this group, because just in listening to Walter and Randy in terms of what they would like to see on the app, I believe that much of that is already there. And I wonder if somebody just could give a demo, because I can tell you one thing that I love, and I don't know whether it's on the app or in Google, but when I get on the train in Larchmont, it tells me which car is the least crowded.
Yeah.
So it's like before the train comes in, it's like, okay, here's where I want to be. And the app just has so many features. Before we go make a big deal out of this, could we just have one of your young people to show us the extent of what can be utilized on the app?
We can probably do both. There is, in fact, and I'm actually glad you raised the issue of the communication in the app. There is a new couple of people who are working on railroad communications, customer communications, and also meshing them between the two railroads, standardizing them. That I've been in touch with over the last couple of weeks. They were away, then I was away, and now they're back. And I think that it would be great to maybe have them come in September and give us a presentation on what they're doing with customer communication and outreach, and that could include the app as well. I mean, we can. It's hard to give an app demonstration on the computer because it's largely on the phone. Although maybe Kara can figure it out because she is that young person. But we can certainly get somebody from the railroad or from the MTA we can ask them to come in and give us that information.
As of now, in order to get the full schedule for any of the lines, Hudson, Harlem, New Haven, or Port Jervis, for any of the lines on the computer, you have to dig and scroll down, and it doesn't really tell you where you find the full schedule. It's like a treasure hunt, and eventually you get to it. Oh, here it is, and then it's a tiny little thing. You have to blow it up, and if you print it out, you get maybe 3 or 4 pages or more, depending what line you're dealing with. But it would be so much easier for everybody if they would print schedules. People who don't want them, they don't have to take them. That's all.
And another point is, listening to Walter, there are some stations that may in fact need a paper schedule, but I can assure you, like, I live in Larchmont, and the complexity that I'm hearing from Walter does not exist for me. So my only point is, maybe there's also a recognition that these are stations where you need the paper as opposed to those that you don't.
Yeah, I commuted from Larchmont for 28 years, and I kind of knew the schedule.
Oh yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, from going from Larchmont to Grand Central, you get to know, which are the express trains, which are the locals, and so on, and they're pretty much memory schedules. But there's a lot of places you might want to go to. For example, you wanted to go to Norwalk, Connecticut, or someplace the other direction on the New Haven line. It's not quite so easy to get the information.
Okay. I started to say before, Walter and I have a friend who's a retired Metro North employee. So he's been out in the Midwest and sent these from Chicago, from Cleveland. And then he also sent me a system map from Cleveland and Metrolink in St. Louis, got information on here. So I mean, other places are producing them. I don't think there's a reason why we can't produce them here. And one other thing I wanted to say is through the pandemic, even though it's not completely over, New Jersey Transit has continued to have their private cars, their quiet cars.
And
And
what,
Amtrak also.
one thing that I don't quite understand by Rinaldi's response is like, okay, if you have a quiet car and a mask required car, there may be overcrowding. So for me, that tells me, just from a market analysis, that the demand is there and you need to increase the number of cars dedicated to quiet and mask. Because in this time where the COVID rates are going up, I don't get why we wouldn't want to provide a safe haven, particularly for people who are immunocompromised.
Well, the governor just extended or reiterated the fact that masks are required on transit. So it's a matter of enforcement. And
we've chosen not to enforce it. That's why we need a mask required car to limit, the area that has to be, I think, controlled.
but who's going to enforce that?
I would say that to whoever's credit, because I complained before that they don't announce anymore that, masks are required. So they have now started announcing that. The other part is at one point they would offer masks. So rather than enforcing, at least providing the option of saying, okay, your conductor has some in their back pocket and if you need a blah, blah, blah. So,
Rosalind, what are you doing on Monday morning around 9:00?
I haven't looked at the map, the weather thing yet, because I would hope to be playing golf, but what?
I know, because before I became a board member, I was at every joint committee meeting advocating on behalf of commuters. So I'm offering you the opportunity to come there and you can give your complaints, your suggestions, right to Kathy and the senior staff, and everybody will hear you.
Okay.
You can do that
But also-
virtually.
Huh? She could do
You
it
can do that
virtually.
virtually.
Also.
But I think
Yes.
it's at 8:30. Let me check.
No,
8:30.
8:30. There's a different committee meeting at 8:30. I think we're
Railroad-
9:30 this week.
Railroad
9:30.
is at 9:30.
Okay, so maybe you get together with Jess or Kara and work on something, and then they'll tell you the mechanics of how you can do it.
Right,
Okay.
8:30.
It's going to be very close to the 9:30 start time, because the bridges and tunnels at 9:00 generally gets done quickly, because there isn't a lot to do there. So if you could vote like from 9:30, 9:45, that would be terrific, and you could have your voice heard. And the
And my
same goes for
question-
Michael and anyone else who wants to.
My question is, do you think I'm nuts for advocating for this? Because if it's
No,
just me,
no.
I'll shut up.
No, there's a lot of people who share yours. I was in the riding the subway last week with Andrew and Jerry. We went someplace together, and the mass compliance at subway was really poor. But I was in the city with my wife on Tuesday, and we took a couple of buses, and I would say that the mass compliance on the buses we rode was 100%. Everyone on the bus, on all buses we rode, was wearing a mask.
On the subways, it depends, I find, what line you ride, what time, which direction, how hot it is. But Rosalind, we're happy to work with you on testimony. There are a lot of people who testify at the board meeting about their concerns about mass compliance. And
Well,
their concerns
Let me just
about-
ask you a question, because I have a friend who is a federal judge in the Southern District, and she's always complaining to me about this. Is it better that someone not on the council give testimony with, because a citizen coming, or maybe both of us, or what?
Well, I would say both of you.
Okay. Well, reach out to me and we'll see what we can put together.
Sure, great. Absolutely, we'll
I
do that.
think that our presenters are here.
Yes.
So we can pick this up afterwards.
Yes,
And
and
so
Peter
we'll
put,
defer-
Peter put in the chat, links to schedules. If anybody, would like to access that. So it's a quicker than meandering through the website, I think, right?
Yeah, those are basically the links to the MTA's website. It's it's at the top of the menu is schedules, so it's fairly easy to navigate. I just made it a little more simpler since we're looking for Metro North, but if you were looking for Long Island Railroad, you'd be able to do it. And I understand, for people who don't have either a mobile device or access to internet, but the information is there. The schedule is there. There's also trip planner tools. That information is regularly updated. Obviously, the most recent schedule change has all that information. And the same thing with our mobile apps. That information, they're constantly looking to refresh it and update it. And I'm sure someone at Metro North would be or MTA would be more than happy to speak to the group later in the fall about other things.
Sure, thank you. Okay, I see we have Robin. Hello there. Nice to see you again. Thank you for your time. All right, how do we,
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Hi, Walter. Long time no see. And I'm joined by Emily Provancha, who is the
Hello.
project manager for the MTA commuter railroad first mile, last mile study. It's a study. It's the development of a toolkit and then a pilot program. And again, that's for both Metro North and Long Island Railroad service territory outside of New York City. So it does not include Bronx, it doesn't include Queens, but we're in the midst of that study, probably about 3/4 done. And we thank you for giving us the time to give you a brief presentation about it and welcome questions. So perhaps I could hand it. Oh, and by the way, I'm Robin Hollander, and I am the Deputy Director for Station Area Planning and Transit Oriented Development under MTA C&D, formerly of Metro North Railroad, like 27 years at Metro North Railroad. So, and I'm going to pass it over to Emily Provancha. Thank you.
And I've been able to screen share, so you should be able to do that.
Great. Sure. Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Emily. I work with Robin in the Transit Oriented Development and Station Area Planning team. And we have been working on MTA's first last mile study for since November 2021. All of this is just a recap for Lisa, but we are excited to talk to you today. And I just wanted to confirm whether everyone can see my screen.
yes,
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, excellent. So the overarching goal of our study is to improve access at our suburban Metro North and Long Island Railroad commuter rail stations. And our approach is to examine access and existing barriers, research all the industry best practices for first mile, last mile, and then create tools and resources that our stakeholders can use and will have access to on the MTA website. So when I break down the study, just know that there's many deliverables that I'll be talking about, not just research. There's going to be analysis. There's going to be a toolkit that will live on our website. And the final piece is pilot programs. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So what everybody thinks about when they think about first mile, last mile, it's really traditional station access, parking, our service parking lots, our garages, and really convenient access to our suburban stations is key to our business model of operating the railroads. We want to make sure people have convenient access, but for this study, we're focusing more on walking, biking, shared ride, and transit access, because a lot of our pre-COVID, a lot of our parking areas are almost at capacity or beyond capacity. This land is expensive to build and maintain. We recently built some garages on Long Island Railroad for the LIR expansion project. And really the land there are some areas where the land could be more productively used, maybe for TOD in the future. And finally, many suburban residents just don't have access to a vehicle, either by choice or by economic circumstance. So we really wanted to focus on pedestrians, bicyclists, people that are sharing rides, whether it be a carpool or an Uber or a Lyft or a microtransit program, and transit access to our stations. So what are some of the things that we're looking at? So again, beyond driving and parking, how do our station areas perform for pedestrians? Do we have crosswalks? Do we have sidewalks? Is there bike parking? Is it accessible? Is there a multimodal area? Is there curb space for people to pick up and drop off? Those are kinds of things that we're taking a look at. And I should also mention, we are coordinating directly with all 7 counties in our service territory for Metro North and Long Island Railroad. So at the outset of the study, going back as far as January, we've been meeting regularly and coordinating all of our deliverables with the counties as our main local contacts. And from there, we encourage the counties to share what we're doing locally. Okay, I just wanted to make that caveat. And so another reason, okay, why are we doing this study? We're seeing a lot of broader changes in travel patterns, and we've seen employment outside of Manhattan. We're seeing reverse commuting growing. We're seeing flexible work schedules, working from home. The discretionary transit trips on the weekends, trips on the evenings, we've seen a growth in. People are using apps for multimodal trip planning. They might be a little bit multimodal, like say they're taking an Uber to our train station and then they're taking the subway and they're using their phone app to plan their entire trip. We're seeing increased growth in for-hire vehicles, like I said before, Ubers, Lyfts, Vias, and then the on-demand microtransit. We're seeing trends that in our, not just New York City, but suburban commuter rail territory, there are microtransit pilots popping up, and even some are beyond the pilot stage. Now they are programs. So we think this is a great time to take a look at first mile, last mile access, and we've really learned a lot during the study. We can even showcase many strategies that are already being piloted and are successful throughout the Metro North and Long Island Railroad commuter territory, and these are a few. So we have interesting app trip planning integration between Uber and Long Island Railroad with the Make My Train app, which allows you to tell Uber which Long Island Railroad train you would like to meet, and they will pick you up and make sure you're there for your scheduled train. We've got some in the middle column here, 2 microtransit programs, and there are more on the way that are waiting for grant funding in our commuter railroad territory. But these shuttles, again, you use your app, you request a ride on demand, and many of these, like Wheels to You in both Westport and South Norwalk and East Norwalk stations, can connect you to the Metro North stations. And below you'll see the Southampton on-demand microtransit program in Suffolk County. We also have a lot of scooter share, bike share programs. 2 that I can highlight here today, really interesting models in Nassau and Suffolk County. They decided countywide to do a countywide bike share that each municipality can simply opt into. So both Nassau County and Suffolk County did the RFP. They chose Pedal Share as their operator, and then any municipality within those 2 counties can simply opt in with a license agreement to the county's overall umbrella contract with Pedal Share. So I thought those were interesting because a lot of users want to ride beyond municipal boundaries. So when we had like a bike share in White Plains or a bike share in Yonkers or a bike share in New Rochelle, users weren't able to ride beyond those municipal boundaries. So that's somewhat of a barrier. Okay, so what did our study look at? We started analyzing right off the bat all of these best practices. And the second step was, let's look at all of our stations and really take a look at the area surrounding our stations. What is the population density surrounding the station? What is the daytime population in terms of, reverse commute, or people are coming to these communities for employment? We looked at the land use mix surrounding the station. So we wanted to get a better idea of what types of stations are we working with. We also chose to have one category be major hubs. Now, these are stations that might have Amtrak service, they might have regional bus service, and Metro North and local bus. So we consider those major hubs. And then we've got higher density stations with higher population density and more of a land use mix. Then it kind of steps down from there. Medium density suburban, medium density village, lower density, and seasonal limited stop. So we wanted to take a look at, based on these 6 station types, how are people currently getting to the station based on our own origin destination data? And what we found is pretty much in line with what we expected. So at the major hub stations, you see more of a distribution of how people are getting to the station. At major hub stations, they also tend to have express service. So you do see some people driving to the station. You have the highest percentage of any other category that access the station by transit, which we didn't find, it wasn't a surprise to us to see. You've got a lot of people walking, you've got a lot of people sharing rides. So major hubs, that's kind of what we expected. There's a lot of different ways people are getting to our major hubs. Now, with the higher density and the medium density, we were not shocked to see that these are the highest categories of stations where people are walking to access our station. It makes sense. There's a higher density surrounding our station. There's a higher land use mix. It's a more walkable station area. Okay, then you go down towards, medium density village, lower density, you are seeing that yellow bar increase. So more, and the orange bar are also increasing. So shared rides and drive alone. And then for seasonal limited stop, we found it interesting. This type of station had the highest percentage of people bicycling and also sharing rides. A lot of people are sharing rides to our seasonal limited stop station. So this kind of it kind of helps us take a look at how are people accessing now at each type of station. And it helped us to kind of think about which strategies might work best for each station to encourage more walking, biking, transit use, and shared ride. Because really we want to shift people away from drive alone to these other more active modes. We also would like to make it easier for people to get to the stations that aren't currently riders. Maybe we could increase our ridership if we made our stations more walkable, bikeable, transit friendly. We made it easier for people to share rides. So one of the major tools we wanted to create in the study, we wanted our stakeholders to be able to have all of the analysis, all of the data from our study. We wanted to give them access to that. So we decided to create a web-based interactive toolkit for our stakeholders in the county level, the local level. It could even be potentially nonprofits or developers who have an interest in improving station access. So we have embedded into this toolkit all of the data we've compiled on station area, topography data, census data, demographics, and all of our studies analyses. So what are the major gaps surrounding the station? What is the propensity of our customers surrounding each station to, if there are improvements made, what is the likelihood that those customers might walk and bike and share rides and use transit? So we have created this tool so that our stakeholders can assess their station areas. They can see all of the best practices. They can access potential funding sources and a cost benefit analysis across the strategies. They can use this toolkit to design pilot programs. And at the end, you can do as many as you want draft iterations. But once you come up with something that you'd like to potentially share with the MTA for our review, you can export an entire summary of all of your work, including all the data, cost estimates, the map, the pilot design, and you can share that with the MTA. And from there, that's where the MTA would start working with these local communities. We have an interest in helping by providing all of these resources and creating a forum for our stakeholders to make these improvements. On their dime, they would maintain, but we've created a policy and a process for the MTA to be able to work with our communities in this way through this toolkit, and kind of on a case-by-case basis, taking a look at our stations and how could we work more in partnership with communities to make these improvements, to improve access to our stations. So we really think this toolkit is going to be an invaluable resource to our communities. We think potentially through the work they do in the toolkit, they could go and apply for grants to get their projects funded. So the last part of our study, and our study is going to be wrapping up by November of this year. The last part of our study is to actually recruit 10 communities that would want to be willing to, work with us, have our consultant use the toolkit that they've created to assess 10 station areas and the consultant would develop the pilots on behalf of these communities. So we think that these 10 pilot opportunities are a great way for our stakeholders to have the benefit of using our consultant to do all the work for them. The consultant will assess their stations. They'll coordinate with the MTA and the local stakeholder on how to develop the pilot design. And at the end of the process, the consultant will be able to share their finished pilot design with the community for the community to then implement when they have the resources or when they're able to. So that's all I wanted to say about our study. We're really excited. We're deep into the process of recruiting pilots. We're trying to shoot for at least a pilot in every single county. And we're working really hard to kind of spread the word about our study and the toolkit and this pilot opportunity to all of the communities in our commuter rail territory. So with that, I will stop sharing. And if anybody has any questions, we're more than willing to keep a discussion going.
I was looking at that last slide there, those bikes in the bottom left corner, those, are we allowing them on trains? Those kind of battery e-bikes or whatever they call them?
So those are bike share bikes. So those would be docked at the station. They wouldn't be brought onto our trains.
Well, I've seen them on trains. Not a lot.
If people have personal e-bikes or
Mhm.
folding bikes or folding scooters, I believe that the Metro North rule is that for a full-size bike, it would have to be off-peak only. And for any folding bike or folding scooter, it would be allowed at any time.
So I was going to actually give an update on the e-bikes and e-scooters after this presentation. A little bit, because that's a topic I know that's a lot of interest, and we had sort of delved into a little bit on our last.
So Emily, one question that I have is, it seems like you're encouraging, or there'll be the opportunity for more bikes to be on trains. Is that a fair statement or not?
I don't think we're encouraging more bikes on trains, but we're encouraging people to access our station, to get to our station, or to get from our station using modes other than cars.
Okay, because I guess
part of that would be improving the bike parking at our stations so that people have more secure facilities to lock their bikes, because some people have very expensive bikes and scooters now, as with these electric bikes and scooters. So we need more secure places for them to put them.
Well, just as you think about bikes being on trains, I just wanted to note that I was on a train going into the city, and some person decided peak hours, they were gonna bring their bike on the train. To their credit, they went to the least crowded car, so there was nobody on the car. However, it was peak hours and they should not have been. And my point is, we had to wait 10 minutes for the police to come to take that bike off the train. And in my view, because nobody was in the train, I would have rather been on time than to have been delayed 10 minutes. So I don't know, I just wish there was some way that that could be considered just to, you know, better ensure the efficiency of the schedule. Because in some things, like the conductors aren't wanting to enforce masks, but yet we're holding the train up to enforce, you know, whether a bike is on or not.
So Emily, on the TOD thing, you know, I've ridden a lot of the trains in the metro area, and there's just like TOD everywhere. We're supposed to have a project in Nanuet, which is not far from here. I was on the original committee, but then the management of the town changed, and so I'm not on it anymore. But there's also a big TOD at Suffer now. You could touch base with them to see what's going on there. And at several locations along the Pascack Valley line, there's been huge building going along. It's Montvale and the Park Ridge. So if just that you could be aware of it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Actually, we have a meeting coming up next Monday with Town of Clarkstown
Oh, great.
to tell them all about the first mile, last mile study and the toolkit and the pilot opportunity.
Is this, oh, yeah, when is it going to be on Monday? Because
I'd have to look
is
it
it
up.
going to,
but-
is it
1
going
to 2,
click?
1 p.m. to 2.
No, Joy, I'll be that's Capital Program Committee. Sorry.
And Randy, just so you know, they did invite Metro North, the town of Clarkstown. I was on the committee when they were looking at the TOD zoning and
Right.
all of that. So we've been in very good touch with the town of Clarkstown, particularly over the last few years about it. And so they seemed like a naturally interested community when it comes to something like, you know, looking at a first mile, last mile, because of the development that they're anticipating nearby. So
Yeah, they were thinking about rerouting the tracks so they would have a much better parking facility and so on, but that never happened either. All right, I thank you.
So,
Anybody else have anything on so we can let them go back to work?
yeah, I've got 2 questions. I don't know if it's in the scope of this study or another, but do you have a financial model for how much is saved by shifting a rider from the car to an alternative format?
That's a really good question. You mean in terms of parking, like the cost of maintaining parking versus the cost of maintaining bikes and pets? Okay, I have a couple I have some information on that. Actually, our director, Bob Paley, specifically asked us to show those numbers. Okay, so parking structures, each space costs about, surface parking is $35,000 to $60,000 per space to build. Okay, let me start over. This is for parking garages. $35,000 to $60,000 per space to build. Okay, that's just to build. Then $500 per space per year to maintain. Okay.
500,000?
Sorry,
$500.
$500 per space per year to maintain.
That seems absurdly high.
So that's for parking structures. That's not for surface parking. We do have a lot of surface parking, which I imagine the numbers are slightly lower.
$500 a year of maintenance costs, that's got to include amortizing the capital, right?
Okay, that's a good question that I can't answer.
Okay.
Well,
But-
machines are expensive to gas and fuel, and they come there and sweep them up and wash them. Just joking.
Okay.
So I think it's fair to say that building and maintaining parking structures is a lot more expensive than building and maintaining pedestrian infrastructure, bike infrastructure, the curb space needed for a shuttle or a bus to stop and pick up and drop off folks. So I think that's a really good question, and putting it into economics terms is definitely something that we had tried to do.
The other question is, I don't know how we define last mile or first mile. You didn't mention alternates, travel inside Manhattan from the destination, whether it's Penn Station, Grand Central. And I'm wondering if
Because
that's
we're
part of it.
really focusing on the suburban commuter rail stations. So we did not look at Grand Central, Harlem, 125th, any of the Bronx stations.
Is
There
anybody?
was another study done a few years ago, I believe, for New York City. It may have focused more on the like transit desert areas. I think but it was sort of like that same kind of how do people get to the subway stations. So that was a separate effort that I believe was completed before the pandemic. I do also want to add one thing that is important for people to know, and I feel that it's been one of the reasons why it's so important that we're working with the communities and the counties is that, in most cases, when you leave the station, MTA no longer has any jurisdiction. We have no land use authority. We can't affect a change in the street network or a bicycle lane or anything like that. But we can bring technical assistance and something like this toolkit. And so that's one of the reasons why we really do need, we want to work with the communities anyway, but it's really imperative. We ourselves cannot make changes to the street network or anything like that, even if they're minor, right? But we can, certainly provide whatever technical assistance that we have. So I just wanted to explain maybe why it was so important that the communities are so involved.
And other aspects of this could be how much the passenger would save by taking a bicycle or walking to the station rather than driving and having to have a second car in order to pay for the parking at the station as well. Now that could amount to a considerable saving in a lot of situations.
And we might have some of that somewhere because I feel
Oh,
that
yes.
we did calculate, the average permit cost, which by the way is a little difficult to do on the full suburban scale because in Long Island, the parking is much less expensive for customers. It's heavily subsidized by the local communities that own those parking lots. So, you have some locations where people pay close to literally nothing to park at a Long Island Railroad station, and that's
Yes.
not found anywhere on Metro North's system. So maybe we can't use an average, but we could use like for each railroad the amount saved. That's right, Walter. That's a good point. And we have amassed a lot of that information. Not so much the wear and tear though of cars and things like that.
But if you do
We
have
do
that
have
would be great
Metro
to share with
North.
us.
Yes, we have Metro North average parking cost data. We have Long Island Railroad average parking cost data. Yes, we have all of that.
That would be great. If you could get that to us, that would be great.
And it's just the cost to residents. It does not capture cost of non-residents who use like the daily meters.
Right, their permit costs.
And that's
Emily?
at a lot of places on Long Island, as I recall, but if the station is in an incorporated village and the parking is run by the village, you live in the village, you're a resident, you get cheap parking. But if you live a half a mile away and you're not in the village, you got to pay through the nose for the parking. And this exists at some Metro North stations. I don't know how many, but there are some like that. You get a special deal if you live in the village that runs the parking lot.
Right. Well, Metro North, if we are a property owner of any lot, obviously there we don't have any residency restrictions and the pricing is the same. But you're right, Walter, in communities where they own their parking, they sometimes restrict that no non-residents can even come. And if they haven't accepted federal money, they can do that. If they've accepted federal money for any portion of that lot, they have to open it to anybody. But they are, I think, allowed to charge different rates. If I'm not 100% sure, I know there is something though, if it's federally funded, it has to be open to everyone, but they may still be able to charge different rates. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that any lots that Metro North owns, that Westchester County owns, Those are open to everybody at the same rate.
Right.
So that actually brings a question, and Peter, I saw that you had your hand raised as well, but Rosalind had raised a question earlier about looking almost at variable prices for parking for people who commute, who are part-time commuters, who may not be, you know, the 5 day a week, you know, but more of a hybrid, and whether on, and that's probably outside the scope of this study, but if that's something that you've all looked at or considered for a lower rate for, you know, 3 day weekers perhaps.
Oh, we
Peter?
do not, we won't be making any recommendations for changing any cost of anything.
But that's just because that's not the scope of our study. So maybe, Peter, are you aware of anything through Metro North stations, or we could
Not,
always
I-
come back to you if it's
Yeah,
not?
I think we'll have to come back. I mean, obviously, you know, Laz is a contractor. They handle, I forget the number of stations, probably in the 20, 28, 32 range. But the vast majority of the passenger stations within the 124 are not managed by Metro North. They're obviously local municipalities. And each and every one, you know, has their own business reasons for what rates they do or don't charge and when they charge them. So that's a, you know, a completely different conversation to obviously the work that Emily and Robin have put together. So, you know, I'd love to help you, Rosalind, on, you know, what goes on in New Rochelle. I can tell you that's definitely not a Metro North owned, you know, station. So yeah, there's different reasons for why they may want to do something there. But my question, Emily and Robin, great on the presentation. My question is more of a future for the pilot phase. You know, do you guys have any thought about particular cities or counties that you would want to do? In my mind, I'm thinking like, you know, the bigger intermodal locations, you know, like City of White Plains, Stamford, you know, things where we know there's a lot of connecting services and we can get, I hate the word, more bang for our buck, but we'll be able to see, you know, different, you know, connecting services, even our branch lines, obviously, where, you know, Norwalk is and it connect with our branch lines. Is that something that we would want to, you know, have those municipalities, you know, be partners down the line?
We are working with everyone who wants to work with us. So
But if I can just interrupt, I'm sorry, this study is not in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
This is
Okay.
New York State only, so I'm sorry. Thanks, Emily.
no problem. Robin and I have made this presentation, I'm guessing, to 24 local communities in the Metro North Territory, not even counting Long Island Railroad. So we've been going on a road show and we are just trying to spread the word to all of anybody who's interested in listening to us talk about the study and the toolkit and the pilot. And like I said, we're working hard to create a process through which these stakeholders can work with the MTA. If there's any MTA property, that's something that we're looking to create a policy for that allows us to enter into a license agreement to allow, for pilot purposes, allow a stakeholder to work with us to pilot something if Metro North owns the property. If Metro North doesn't own the property, MTA still wants to be involved because we have an interest in making sure our stations are safe and the flow for our customers is at the operational level that we need. So we just we're partnering, we're open to it, and we're really open to working with any community. I think being strategic about it would make sense. I don't think there's, you know, a level of communities yet knocking on our doorstep. So we haven't really gotten to the point where we need to triage any priorities at the moment.
And if I could just add, actually, at next week's board meeting will be an action item or an information item about streamlining the process for these pilots when, if they are on MTA property, so that it doesn't have to be a board action every time we license out, a piece of land for a bike share or something like that for the pilot. I mean, if it's a long term, that's another, but just for these pilots to make it easier for communities who want to sign on and see us as, as a daunting agency to have to cut through all the red tape. So we're hoping that will help. And I think the goal, Peter, to your point, the goal actually was to look at all the, how Emily showed all the different typologies, like the mix, the major hub and the low density and the high density, to get like a little bit from each of those. Like it would be ideal if we're able to get, even at a low density rural kind of station. And we have had some interest expressed to us from some of those communities. So like Emily said, we've been kind of on a road show, but hoping to get a different, all different types of station areas, different typologies, and different types of first mile, last mile elements applied at them to use as, a case study, a pilot, and hopefully they'll be successful enough that other communities say like, wait, they have that, we'd like it, So.
Yeah, no, hey, I'm open to obviously all sorts of communities, and obviously with the micro mobility of some of the powered, battery devices that are out there, as they expand potentially, more north and they get out of the immediate urban markets and are looking to, support some of the smaller markets or, suburban markets. It would be great that they have this toolkit and the municipality knows, that there is opportunities, and obviously it benefits us, hate the word selfishly for Metro North, that they're using our service, and that's fine. So all good.
And I wanted to mention one other thing, Peter, because you really pointed out like, okay, let's be strategic with all these major stations, right? In a lot of ways, at some of the major stations, those localities are doing this already, and they may only want to clue the MTA in because they want to site something near our station. So in some ways, they don't need our help as much as some of the other station or communities may benefit from these resources. But I think having all of our stations know that this is something that we have an interest in, we want to encourage, I think it'll help us make sure that these access modes will become available within our station area as much as they become available in, White Plains downtown or Stamford downtown. The fact that we want to make sure that that connection to our station is accounted for.
All right. Great presentation. Thank you so much, Robin, Emily, and May for setting it up. And
Thank you for having us.
we look forward to you'll send a copy so that we can share it with one of our members who was caught having to go do some work today at this time. So we'll enjoy it. Thank you again. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Stay
much.
cool. Have a good day. Bye
You
now.
too. So getting back to where we were here. That's just us chickens now. Okay, so we go back with the old business. I think everything is settled with, we're gonna get, you'll get help for Rosalind to make a statement. How you do it remotely will be fine. The one other, is there any other old business that we need to do?
I wanted to, well, I don't know if it's old business or new business, but since it was raised again about the e-bikes and e-scooters.
Okay.
So that's something that LRCC is also concerned about, and we talked about it at our meeting, MNRCC, last time we met. Jerry Bringman and I met with Pat Warren and his some of his team to talk about concerns about lithium batteries and about and Peter, you had also mentioned that Pat, and that there's a larger effort that's looking at what's a protocol for e-bikes and e-scooters, but really with focus on safety. So Pat said, yeah, indeed, that they're looking at safety measures. That lithium, the real danger from the lithium batteries comes when they're in a charging mode, so they're never ever allowed to charge. No other transit system in the United States has e-bike, e-scooter / battery policy in place, so that the MTA would be the first. So being the trailblazer isn't always the easiest, and they have to put something in place that's also going to withstand legal challenge. They're not really, they're reluctant to put back a permit process that has been removed. And the enforcement issue, they want to put in place a policy that's enforceable. Because if you put something in place that's unenforceable, as you know, then it's just not gonna, it's not going to work. So they've said that they're coming together with a policy that they will share with us. I asked if we would be able to get an early look at it so that we could weigh in. Brian Paranza of MNRCC said, no, we should actually write our own policy and send it to them. I think that that opens up a whole can of worms. We're not safety experts, nor do we have the ear of the MTA police and the conductors to see what they're able to or willing to enforce. So, we can weigh in from the customer side, I think, and provide the concerns and issues, and that we should do that. And that is the perspective I think it makes sense for us to offer.
Okay.
Is my opinion. We had made a motion that was passed here to support writing a letter asking that the MTA update its code of conduct and put it out there and really make it loud and proud. And that's also something we spoke with Pat about. He said they're in the process of doing that too. So because he said that, we hadn't written a letter, but I think if we're going to write down and pass around the customer concerns and issues that we have, that is something that we would include in that.
All right. So I want for new business, I wanted to bring up for the month of August, other councils take that month to go traveling someplace, visiting a facility of the railroad or subway system that they are our sister councils. And last year, although it didn't happen in August, it happened the following month, we had an opportunity to visit the Croton Harmon shops. And so Metro North doesn't have a lot of facilities that one can visit, but I'm suggesting that we ask for them to give us a tour of their radio control center in Grand Central, and also Track 25, which is the hub of everything that goes on down there. So this would be, can easily, everyone can get to Grand Central, like from our group. So the date would be, we have set aside the 18th, I think, of is that on schedule? Yeah, the 18th of August. So does anybody have any other suggestions? So can we, everybody is in agreement that we should try to do this?
That's the Grand Central Radio Control Center
And Track 25.
and Track 25.
Yes, it's just in the office downstairs where the trains are actually dispatched, and that's where everything goes on. So is everybody?
The other thing we might want to do while we're there is to see the control center for Eastside Access.
If it's available, sure. That's a great idea to add that. Yes. Okay. All right.
They call it the Office of the Rail Traffic Controllers, and dispatchers are called Rail Traffic
Rail
Controllers.
traffic control, the RTC. Right, the RTC, of course. Was it somewhere up in the building, 12th floor, 15th floor, whatever. Okay, so let's put that down, and Lisa will send a letter to Metro North and ask them if they can do that. Okay, so we have to approve by acclamation. Can we get approval to make Walter our vice chair to replace Orrin Getz? Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Walter, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You have more experience than all of us do with the, how many years did you have with Metro North and predecessors?
20, about 30, I guess, altogether.
All right. Is there any other new business?
There's just one point of information. A couple of weeks ago, I was volunteering with some local civic something, and George Latimer, our county executive, and a couple of his people happened to be at the train station at the same time. And one of his deputies, Emily Salazar, I mean, obviously that office nominated Walter and myself. And she was asking, oh, what's going on in, with the council and blah, blah, blah. And her suggestion was that Walter and I scheduled time with them, and she would oversee it just to kind of give them an update on what we've been doing. So I just wanted to throw that out. So Randy, as chair, you are aware, and to ask whether I should, reach out to her. And of course, it's not something urgent, but she suggested that we meet with them just to let them know what's going on.
Personally, for Walt, it should be on Zoom because he has trouble getting around, right?
Well, I'm able to drive now, but I do hobble around when I have to walk. But it sounds like a good idea, and I have sent emails to Joan McDonald from time to time, alluding to the things that are happening out on the railroad that they might not know about. But it would be a good idea to meet with them periodically, I think.
If you want me to be there, just if I'm available, I certainly would do it.
Okay, I'll reach out and see what they want, and Walter and Randy, I'll circle back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, please keep me in the loop also, because I'm a Westchester person.
Okay.
Thanks, Ross.
Me
All
too.
right. All right. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about?
Yeah, let me just make one comment. Obviously, Lisa, I think you're well aware the MTA is working on a strategic action plan in regards to the whole space of bicycles, pedestrians, and micro-mobility. I'm not sure if that came up with your meeting with Pat, but that'll certainly down the line inform some of the things that are ongoing. To Rosalind's comment, obviously the whole area of bikes, powered devices, e-scooters, e-bikes on our trains during peak hours versus off-peak. That will all be part of this ongoing conversation in terms of, what decisions. So, more of the strategic access plan will be talking about what's off the train station. So, what are we building? What do we have built? In terms of where can bikes be stored? Where can they be parked safely, securely? So those are kind of wrapped into that conversation. Your issue you raised was on board a train. Yes, the current policy is no bikes during peak hours. The how do you operationalize these issues similar to facial coverings? These are ongoing, discussions that are, constantly being discussed with our transportation crew. What's happening. Obviously, it does sometimes involve, unfortunately, MTA PD when a customer is deemed uncooperative or unruly, very similar to someone who refused to maybe pay their fare. So yes, unfortunately, a train will be held up. MTA PD will be brought in. They'll have to address the customer when the conductor is not able to deal with it. These are, issues that have been going on for many years. They do happen from time to time that, there's a train disruptions. I don't think you necessarily can have a conductor just kind of waive a rule and say, hey, you know what, we want to keep the train on schedule and let the unruly customer win. So these are ongoing challenges. Again, as Lisa mentioned, yes, there's ongoing discussions about how to address powered and battery devices on board trains. Clearly, there's limitations physically to store them on trains. The M8 is the only train that has bike racks. The M7s, the M3s do not. The bombs and coaches do not as well. So again, these are all going to be addressed as part of various stakeholder and team department and action plans that we're looking at. So more to come on that. So I just want to kind of give you a quick synopsis of what I can share and what's pretty much public at this point.
Thank you very much, Pete. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Make a motion to adjourn. Our next, September 8th is the next PCAC meeting, but I hope we can work out the 18th of August. And we'll see as many of you as we can.
Well, we'll let you know if that date is viable, if there's any issues with that, or if we need to look at.
So
Other-
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everyone all in favor? All right. Enjoy the rest of the summer and hope to see you on around the 18th. Take care. Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thank you again for coming.